Hi, everyone. It's Dina at the Realize Foundation, and today I'm here with Bill, and we're talking about Scars to Stars Book 4. And it is the second book that Bill has written in, and I'm excited to talk more about his chapter today. So, welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Dean. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your experience writing, you know, the first time you wrote to
Mm.
this time when you wrote, and like what your experience was um, in the actual writing, but also just in the community and meeting other people.
Sure, sure. I actually started writing my own stories about my experiences working in the Worcester Police Department for 10 years. And so it wasn't that hard a pivot to be able to look at what I've already written, maybe modify it a little bit or add something to it, or take something out, and then combine all the different stories that I came up with for the second book and this book together so that they create one complete chapter.
And as far as writing, whether you were writing on your own or writing for Scars to Stars, what how has writing helped you like process and understand more about your journey?
Well, it's a constant reminder of what I experienced, being abused and bullied for 10 years because I refused to step on people's necks or trample on their civil rights or break or bend the law to make an arrest or a case.
Mm.
Um, I refused to do those things, and I was persecuted for it. So writing was a little cathartic in the beginning. It also reminds me of exactly why I'm, fighting to this day. For example, to get my full disability retirement, I was cheated out of my full disability retirement even after passing a state medical board. So, it allows me to look at what's happened and kind of be able to frame up, what are my next steps for trying to get, uh, what's that word we use? Not reconciliation.
Redemption, maybe.
No, at the oh goodness gracious, my brain just went far. This is going to be able to be edited, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the word? Reparate. There we go. You want to ask? Where was I? Um, it helps me to think about any potential reparations that I might attempt to go for. So yeah, that's about it in a nutshell.
Okay. Um, so tell us a little more about your story in this book, in the fourth book.
Sure, sure. It's a continuation of stories about different incidents that happened with different officers and officials in the police department where, I was yelled and screamed at, or had somebody try to knock my weapon out of my hands because they thought I was pointing it someplace that I shouldn't be. Just all kinds of things that happened, and um, and what they have done to me over time. I was 10 years on the job total, and after 5 years, inside something snapped. Like I knew that this was just no good for me anymore, and we're just trying to, wait it out. Maybe I'll make sergeant and it'll get a little better. Maybe another job opportunity with another department might open up, and I can just laterally transfer. So I just stayed, in that situation. Some people would say, why didn't you get out? But you never realize that when you're in it. Um, and I just was hoping that things would eventually change. So I have a series of stories of how I was acted out upon, and they paint pretty well a department that was very not very empathetic to people in general, but certainly not to someone like me who wasn't going to go out and behave illegally or inappropriately with somebody in the street, something that was happening like all around me all the time.
Mhm.
So
Do you think you were singled out because of a certain thing, or was it just that? I know you told me a story once about a test and
mm,
that situation where somebody thought that you were trying to be a smart aleck or something like that you told me. But do you think that that kind of stuff is what singled you out to the rest of the department, or what do you think it was?
yeah, it was a combination of things. You mentioned this test. You take an exam on criminal law or constitutional law mostly, and anybody who remembers being in high school or college, and you get done with an exam, you sneak off someplace, say, what did you get on number 1? What did you get on number 12? That kind of thing. And so we would do that often in the locker room after taking an exam and having a small break, and somebody would start talk about a question and would come up with some answer that was completely inappropriate. And I would speak up and say, well, no, actually, we would have to do this, this, and this, and not that. And that just started, a cascade of, who does this guy think he is? And we're the police. We can do anything we want to do. And in that particular story that you talk about, which is in this chapter, I was called an effing know-it-all because that I was the only one in the class out of a class of like 50 plus that recognized that there was something wrong with this fact pattern that we were supposed to analyze and see if we could come up with an arrestable felony and a few other things. And as the story goes, they said they were going to throw it out. But one cadet recognized that there was something wrong with the fact pattern, wrote into the margins what his response would be. And that cadet was Billy Gardner. And that comment came from the back of the room. So it was just more of the same, all through the academy. And when I got out onto the street, that continued and followed, and also got taken up by officers who had already been on the job, who were evidently told about me in the academy, that I wasn't a go along to get along kind of guy, that I wasn't going to support bad behavior by fellow officers. I wasn't going to stick to a story about why something happened when it happened in an entirely different way. And I was mocked, by regular officers for that, and I was even, questioned by officials who were sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. That told me, for example, I was too liberal. I need to take a look at my liberal attitude, maybe get a little more aggressive. Another time I was yelled at and told that I did too much social work and not enough police work. And I'm convinced to this day that police culture really is about social work and that kind of thing. And that a police officer just has a little more or a lot more authority to be able to handle a situation, especially if it's a little more urgent. Um, Unlike something small that might be a neighborhood squabble that parents might take care of. So it was a long 10 years, and they forced me out ultimately, and I still suffer 20 years later after leaving the job from some very serious depression, hyperanxiety, and post-traumatic stress that literally I wake up with every day. And depending on what's going on, it can either get worse or sometimes a little bit better. But usually it's worse. So,
Well, I have a question. If you would talk a little bit about what made you join the police force in the beginning.
long story short, I ended up going to college and to majored in electrical and computer engineering. I wasn't very strong at math, so that didn't really work out. I was influenced by the Apple II, actually, like first got debuted the year before I graduated, and I could see that one day there will be one of these on everyone's desk and in everyone's office, and that we're going to be able to do and be more efficient with all kinds of things. And that is actually what is called computer and information systems. And that's usually, how do we make this system work better in some kind of environment? Back then, it was only hardware and software. You either figured out how to build it or you figured out how to program it. CIS didn't really exist back then. So I ended up, leaving engineering, going in arts and sciences, trying to get in the School of Marketing, tried designing my own major, and in the end came home with 124 credits, but no degree because I didn't have a degree program, just a lot of classes taken. So when I first got home, I just started temping and would temp for 2 or 3 different agencies over time. And I was always the first one hired and the last one let go when work ran out because of my work ethic. And without fail, as soon as a job was done, I'd go back and say, "Oh, we've got another one. Here you go," and pop me in. And so, oftentimes we'd start out with a crew of 12, and that would cut down to a group of 6, and then it would cut down to 3, and then I was the only one left. And then eventually somebody would come up and say, "Listen, we'd love to hire you full time, but we can't, and we've run out of work, so we have to let you go." And again, just go back to the the office and get another gig. So I did that for a couple of years. And it was very fruitful because I was typically always working because of my work ethic. And unfortunately, so to answer your question, because I didn't have a degree, some places wouldn't hire me because I didn't have one. Other people wouldn't hire me because they thought I was so smart that I wouldn't stay on the job long enough, that, this job would bore me or whatever, and I would leave after they took the time to hire me. So I was kind of lost in that nowhere land until I happened to run into a state trooper one day, and the trooper asked me what I was doing, with my life, and I was doing retail at the time. And he said, "Come on, let's go take a walk." And we walked outside of the store while they were working on his vehicle cell phone install. And he asked me, "Have you ever thought about a career in law enforcement?" I said, "Well, police officer, firefighter, astronaut, like every other, kid, boy growing up at that time." And but everybody I knew who was a police officer was either the son of, the nephew of, brother of, that kind of thing. So I thought you just had to have an in. And he's like, no, you take the tests. And I was like, "What test?" He said, "Well, the civil service exam is for municipalities within a state, and the state police exam is for the state police." He said, "Just watch the want ads in the back of the paper, the classified ads, and eventually you'll see announcements for these exams coming up." So I eventually took both of them, scoring a 98 on the civil service exam and a 95 on the state police exam, and found a job in the meantime working as a campus police officer, which I thought would be good street cred when I started an actual academy. And I was mocked for that as well. People would come into the class as like a visiting instructor and would ask, "How many folks have been involved in law enforcement before?" And I would say yes or raise my hand, and you could hear the eyes rolling and the tongues clicking. And yeah, he wasn't a real police officer. Even though we did have a department where we were able to carry a firearm and had the state police powers to arrest. And I took that job very seriously. I actually was the president of the intermediate police academy that they sent me to learn to be a better campus police officer. So eventually the city of Worcester reached out and contacted me because I had a 98, and there was no denying that I was probably at the top of whatever list they had of people that they were looking at. And that began the beginning of the 10 years of hell that I experienced.
Yeah. So let's talk about Scars to Stars and how well, we met in a virtual event a long time, like in 2020, I think, 21.
Yep. Right at the beginning of COVID.
And then Bill has been part of all of our events. So when we first started, we were doing these summits where people were speaking about their stories, and then we did a 3-day event, and then we started turning them into books. And so I don't know, you want to elaborate a little bit on your journey since you found Scars to Stars, and like what that is turned into 2 chapters now? And
Sure. Um, it's been a really cool process, especially the way that you have designed it. For example, when you've reached out to people and they say, "Yeah, I'd be interested in writing a chapter." You've created that weekly Zoom where we can all get on because we're all across the country, and actually, people can ask questions. People can hear how other people are doing with their writing. Maybe they're stuck, and there are people there who maybe aren't stuck and can tell them the benefit of their knowledge and how they got unstuck if they were stuck or something along those lines. So it's a great community that you've built. And the entire community just grows and grows and grows more every year. Every time you come out with a new book. So it's and for people who don't necessarily know what Scars to Stars is, it's really a vehicle to try to stem the number of suicides in our country, um, by having people talk about the traumas they've experienced that might have caused other people to actually self-harm or try to take their own life, but have somehow come out the other side. And the story of the strength that it took to do that, or however it happened, gets compiled in these books. And they're absolutely amazing when you start reading different people's chapters. And they've had an experience that was completely different than yours, but has kind of I just lost it.
like there's some kind of remedy. Like every story has adversity and something that someone has helped someone through that adversity. And like I say all the time, the stories could be totally different than yours, but you can still take something from it that can help you. And I think that's the whole purpose, is like these stories give people hope that they're not alone, and someone else has been in a similar situation and made it to the other side.
Right. Yep, exactly.
So that's what I think is so profound about this project, is that, people write things that they may not have ever even talked about before because it's so personal and vulnerable. And they're writing this to help other people. And in the process, it helps them, heal and process whatever they've been through. And it's crazy because there's people who come to this project and they're like scared to death to write anything. They're like, I've never written a paragraph. Like, I've never done this. I'm scared. This is very personal. And then by the end of it, they're ready to go conquer the world. Like, it's just crazy, the transition that happens in people that participate in this project.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, yes, I started the nonprofit who does this, but it's so much bigger than me because it's such a large group of people who contribute, and I don't know, it's just been a fantastic thing.
Yeah, no, it's been an amazing journey, for lack of a better term. The more and more people that get involved, you do create kind of like a safe space for people to come to, between coming to the weekly meetings leading up to actually publishing a book, or the Facebook page, or the Realized Foundation page. It's a place where people can go and either communicate with other people or get information. And it's very much a safe space, and they don't really have to worry about it, which often out here in the public, doesn't happen because there's such a stigma against anyone with any mental health issues, or you know, even more serious, you know, people who attempt to take their lives. So it's a great thing that you created, and I look forward to one day when we're doing like book 15 and saying, "You remember when?" Who knows how many years that'll take? But yeah, back in 2000.
Yeah, it's true. It's been a journey, and it's funny to hear like people who know me outside of the Realize Foundation. You know, sometimes they'll send me a message and say, "I see what you're doing."
Mm,
Like they don't comment or like or share or whatever, but every once in a while I'll get a message from somebody who's known me a long time. And they're like, "I'm
mm,
following this. I know I see what you're doing and it's good." So it makes me feel like, you know, we're doing something that is making a difference in the world, however small or large that difference is. And I had a really great conversation yesterday with somebody involved in a mental health organization here where I live. And they were like so excited to learn about this and asked me
mm.
to come speak at one of their events. And it's like, it's so refreshing when I meet somebody like that that's like really interested in what we're doing and think that we're doing things that help people. And it's like, well, that's the whole purpose. And I'm glad that somebody recognizes that, you know, because it is my life's mission that people don't feel like they're alone,
Mm,
because that's what gets us to suicidal ideation, is thinking that no one understands and no one cares.
right.
And if people know that someone cares and they have a way to have a hard conversation if they're struggling, then it makes all the difference.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. No, you're totally right. That's suicidal ideation. And for me, it also comes with pain. Like I am literally constantly in pain with very little relief. And that's been going on. I've either been working in a hostile work environment or feeling the results of that for 30 years now, which is over half of my life. Some days I wake up and just wonder how it is that I'm still here. You know, there's some strength in me that has kept me from, you know, taking that far, and taking my own life. And you know, I hold on to that with everything I've got, and you know, hope that one day it doesn't just break down. And I see it as an option. So far I've been lucky that way. And again, I think that what you're doing with Scars to Stars helps people within our organization, or people who are reading the books, to realize that there are different multiple ways that people have gotten through, or at least been able to tolerate what has happened to them, so that they don't think about suicidal ideation.
Yeah, it's true. And I really think that, you know, our purpose in life is what I've discovered lately that really does change things. I think, you know, most of my life I spent in hospitality and events,
Mm.
and when I lost my business in 2020, I thought that was the end of the world. Um, but what I found is when you do have something that you feel really strongly about, and I think that you have this in the love, you know, the acronym love. You guys can, I'll write it in the show notes so you can find out what that means. But I think since you found that, Bill, it seems like that is a big purpose for you in your life. And like this, you know, Scars to Stars is for me. And I feel like when you find something like that that you're so passionate about, that you really can help other people
Mm.
through that passion, that it really helps us um deal better with our mental health issues, in my case at least. Because, you know, like thinking that I can help somebody want to live makes it a purpose for me to live. If that
Sure.
makes sense.
Hmm.
So it's like, how do we help people find that purpose in their life that keeps them going. Because yes, my suicide attempt was, 25 years ago. But it doesn't mean I don't think about it. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that it's never crossed my mind again. It just means that it's not something I'm not willing to go down that road again because of the experience I had. But it also helps to, like, when you get out of bed to do something for someone else every day,
Hmm.
it just gives you a different sense of worth, I guess.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, that's how it's worked for me. I mean, you referred to love being the acronym for love is the organization, love is the answer. That initially started out as a response to a Black gentleman who was a retired veteran, um, who did attempt suicide. He's very open about that. And he had a situation where he was stopped by a police officer, being a Black man walking in his predominantly white neighborhood for absolutely no reason. And that turned into a year and a half of threats because he, got out of the situation, much to the chagrin of the officers that were involved. And then he embarked on this journey to create a film about it and then a book about it, and how we can take the distrust or the friction between two groups. Like initially, it was police departments and communities of color generally. It could be something like today. An example I like to use is everything going on with Israel and Palestine. We have several synagogues in our city, and we have one mosque. Well, it may be that folks in the synagogue don't want to have anything to do with the people in the mosque, and vice versa. And this is where we would come in and have them use the film that I referred to see how it is to admit that there's a problem, acknowledge it, say, yeah, I was a part of that, and I'm sorry, and have the other person accept that apology. And then they can both move forward with reconciliation. And it's all done by just having activities where people get to meet and talk and meet over and over again, and realize that that person on the other side of me who was my enemy, for lack of a better term, is actually a human being like I am. And we should embrace that. And if everyone took the time to do that, a lot of the problems that we have would start to go away. So it's something that does, it keeps me active. It's an amazing group of people, first of all. Probably the best group of people I've ever worked with in my life. And they're very supportive. And all we do is find new ways and new um, collaborations with other organizations around the country so that we can go into a town or a city or a county and actually do the work that Love is the Answer has created. So that does give me sometimes, that's when my anxiety will kind of go down a little bit. And unfortunately, when you're done doing whatever activity that is, it can creep right back in again. But for a while, I do get some relief.
That's good. I think it's so important. I mean, I think love and kindness go hand in hand, and kindness is something I like to talk about a lot too. And I think it's that, walking on a city street and opening a door for somebody is like, or just saying hello. I mean, it can be that simple
Hmm.
to be kind to someone who maybe is having a good day and you have no idea how much that means to them,
Right.
you know? So, well, thank you, Bill, for your time.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure, as always.
Yeah, I'm going to put up your email, and if those of you who do not know Bill, you can reach out. He is a wonderful photographer and a wonderful writer, and he likes to ride Harleys. And he does a lot of interesting things on art programs and readings of books in bookstores and libraries. I don't know. What am I missing? Am I missing something?
I do a lot of work because of the fallout of my time in the police academy and losing my full disability retirement. My home has been foreclosed on twice illegally, we come to find out. So for the last 14 years since the first foreclosure happened, I've been fighting in and out of court with the help of a local organization here called the Worcester Anti-Foreclosure Team. And what we do is go around and actually protest foreclosures, and we blockade when somebody's going to be evicted when we found that the bank has done something illegal with their mortgage and should not have the power to evict the person, and the person has something in front of an appeals court or a bankruptcy court or something which is supposed to stop an eviction action. And often the constables who are sent out to execute those evictions refuse to honor the fact that we're telling them, this person has something in front of the court. Let's wait till it gets resolved, and then you can take the action that you need to take. But they often won't do that, and so all of a sudden you're booted out of your house, your stuff is taken away, and all of a sudden the appeal or something goes through, and they have to bring everything back again. And by then it's just been such a traumatic experience that usually the homeowners at their wits end. So, being able to help people, doing things along those lines, supporting them, keeping the constables at bay while we're waiting for a decision to be made in front of a judge is very, it's very stress inducing, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, helping that person from being kicked out of their house at the time feels really good inside.
Yeah. Well, it's always a pleasure, Bill. I hope if you're listening and you want to connect with Bill, you'll email him and see what you have in common and how we might be able to help each other.
No doubt. I welcome the interaction.
Awesome.